So long. Doing it wrong again. So doing it wrong, so you don't have to.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good break. And we're right on schedule opening up here with Ben already on the screen. Thanks, Ben, to be here for presenting about the Board of Forestry update. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for this time, and thank you for accommodating my schedule change. I really appreciate it. And sorry I'm not able to be there in person today. I like sitting at the table with you guys. And welcome to Becca. We haven't met, but I think you're the newest on the committee, and I look forward to getting to know you. Yeah, so as I was sort of thinking about what's new at the boards, sort of three topics I wanted to go over. And as always, very interested in your feedback on what I and the board should be paying attention to from all of your perspectives. So things have been pretty quiet at the board level for quite a while now, since last summer. We canceled a meeting. We had a couple of very short meetings. I think we're all sort of waiting for a new state forester to get a sense of, or a permanent state forester to get a sense of some direction. And so things have been honestly pretty quiet. We have a board retreat coming up in February, which I don't think we will have an appointed state forester by then, but we hopefully will know who that will most likely be. I don't have any updates for you guys on who that might be at this point. I wish I knew. So yeah, but at that February retreat, we're going to be digging into some sort of bigger topics that I feel like have been pushed down the road a ways, of strategic planning. And what the first item I want to talk about is working through the board and division KPMs. These are our key performance measures that are negotiated with the legislature, that the departments and the board report on every year, which is really a way for everybody to see how well the department is doing. And those KPMs were set many years ago, and many of them are really pretty out of date. And some of them aren't worded very well and aren't necessarily asking the most helpful questions for 2026. And so a large part of our work coming up in February is really digging into that. And it's not something that the boards or the department sets on their own. We set in conjunction with the legislature. And so it's a multi-step process to get there, to update those. But I think everyone is in agreement that, well, many people are in agreement, I don't want to speak for everyone, that these KPMs need some work. And so just for instance, some examples, one of them that you've probably heard, one of our KPMs is the goal to have 98% of fires in Oregon kept at 10 acres or less. That's something that the department reports on every year, on how close to that we get. And we don't usually hit it, but we're always well in the 90 percentile, 94 to 96 usually. So that's a KPM. That's not necessarily one that needs to be changed. That's one that probably most people have heard about. The board has its own set of 16 questions that we ask ourselves every year about how the board is performing. There are a couple KPMs related to state forests. There's a KPM about structure-based management that is very much connected to the current forest management plan that we have, that will need to be updated with our new forest management plan that we're working towards. There are a myriad of other ones about stream riparian quality, and I don't have the list in front of me here, unfortunately, but just to give you a sense of sort of what is in this sort of bucket, this category of key performance measures that we report on. But I would be very curious to hear from you all of, clean slate. What do you think is most important for the departments and the board to be measuring when it comes to effectiveness and progress, good governance of this agency and this board that we report not just to the legislature, but to the world, to the public, to Oregon, of how things are going? Are there, I'd love to just, before I move to keep talking and rambling at you, open that up of what would be most important to hear and to be paying attention to and measuring.
Dave?
Well, just coincidentally, we just happened to have a little discussion about this right before lunch, and it was Josh Hansen's report on SFISH, and I think people at the upper levels need to be aware of the drastic dwindlement in funding for that program, and I don't need, and we're preaching to the choir here, but I think for those that are not informed that you deal with, I think it would be important for them to understand that was originally a $10 million ask for funding, which seemed to be reasonable and everybody agreed to, was immediately slashed to 6.67 million, and now it's down to about 2 million. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's happening there. And so I think it just needs to be brought to the right people so that so this thing doesn't go away, because that's integral to the PFA. And I think it's a promise that, the citizens of Oregon made to small forest land owners that really shouldn't evaporate.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's SFISH is really important. We need to find ways to fund that. Not sure we can turn that into a KPM, but making sure our programs are well funded is something that would be interesting to think about how we measured that. I like that. Thank you.
I mean, just quickly, you could turn it into a KPM, I think. Anything could be measured. To me,
Sure.
It could be a measurement of the number of stream restoration miles accomplished or the number of culverts installed, what have you. I think that would be a benchmark that anybody could understand, right? So that's just an idea.
And
Thank
actually,
you. Yeah.
piggybacking on Dave, that seems to fit so nicely in with making, meeting goals in terms of restoration, in terms of habitat gain versus habitat loss, mitigation of different things. There's so many different parts to it. It's not just about money. One of the things we were talking about is like you can have those success stories of here you have this many more miles of habitat that have been restored, but then on the flip side, how many miles are we not able to restore? So I think, it fits into so many different metric buckets. And so it's not just about promises made to small landowners, because I think everybody gets tired of hearing about us complaining about promises made and promises broken. So maybe we need to reframe those conversations, because they aren't just about us. They're ostensibly about values for all of Oregon and for wildlife, or whatever it might be. So sometimes I think some of that creativity of how do we frame those conversations can be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will switch to Mike if that's okay with others. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, just agreeing with what the other two said there. And Ben, what's the process to have a conversation about this? Like, it's obviously, it's obviously complex. Is it just gonna be limited to like 2-minute testimony in front of the board, or do you know if there'll be, opportunities for people to care to get around a table and really talk it out, or what's the process?
I don't have a clear answer for you. I think the 2-minute testimony in front of the board is a great first step for that. This is one of those, this is an overused term, but hurry up and wait activities where when we talk about this, oh, we need to be dealing with KPMs, we need to be dealing with KPMs, and here we are, and it's going to be February, there's going to be finally a board discussion about it, but then we're on a timeline, and it's a 2-year, we have a chance every 2 years, and I think we need to submit something, I think it's in May, to the legislature. So I think that the clock is ticking right now, but I don't imagine we're going to have this fully baked in our February meeting. So I take that to heart, Mike, that I think to do this right, we probably some follow-up meetings, conversations beyond 2-minute testimony might be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it just feels like small group. It's such a complex issue that people that care getting together would enhance it. So,
Julie?
Thanks, Ben. I would just also encourage, I mean, the department's had some KPMs in the past to also make sure to ask internally, what is it that the staff could effectively measure and what were things that were challenging to measure that they were being asked to? Because sometimes is again that connecting between what we can actually measure and that you have staff and metrics and things available for measuring those. And I think sometimes asking internally too is really important on those past ones.
Thank you. That's a really good point. And I think one of the weaknesses of some of our current KPMs is there are not good, measuring isn't working very well. Let's put it that way. And we had a KPM this year where the result was really bad, but then we realized that only, I think 1 or 2 people had been asked. And it wasn't a statistically big enough sample to give us a meaningful answer. And being able to measure it and making sure that the people who are measuring affirm that this is measurable is really important. Thank you, Julie. That's a really good point.
Mike?
I can't help myself. It's such a complex issue, but I agree that you want to be able to measure things, but just because you can't measure it doesn't mean it's not important and it's worth having on there. And I'll give you an example. The federal fire system, they measure whether every contractor has a contract and whether they've fulfilled the details of the contract, but they don't measure how were they efficiently used. And so all this measurement say, yep, everybody here was paid appropriately, and no one cares that crews sat for days waiting to do nothing. That's not measured, and it's really what's important. Anyway, so the whole thing's a challenge, but they talk about ultimately KPMs address what you care about, and that's important. And whether you can accurately measure it might be second to talking about what you care about. So complex. Good luck.
So
Teresa?
it's Teresa. I'm here as a member of the public, and this isn't really a performance measurable, but one of the things I've noticed in talking about forest issues in Oregon is in the non-forest owning public or professionally related to the woodlands, there's a real conflation of private land, federal land, and state land. And I wonder if there's a way in public announcements and conversations of really making clear the distinction among those things. And if we need to, even the distinction between private industrial and small private, just I think sometimes conversations get more heated because we don't know what we're talking about. And then another one that's come up, and again, it's not so much performance, but it's super measurable, is what post fires, because we've had lots of catastrophic fire by now, what's our actual forest cover right now? Because I know we've got what's designated as forest land, but what what's actually happening. And I know for small people, there's the issue of is reforestation taking off, but some of that's also federal land that's burned, and is replanting happening? So when we talk about Oregon has this many forested acres, but do we?
Mm.
For what that's.
Thank you. That gets at a metric that I've been mulling over, which I think is part of a larger metric of sort of, I'm going to call it sort of actual forest cover. We talk about how many million acres of forest we have, like you said, but I think post-fire is a big one. I think forest health has a nexus there as well. I think land conversion has a nexus there. There's a lot of different reasons why a particular acre designated as forest land may or may not be providing the ecosystem services that we think forest land is going to provide. And reporting on that and change in that, I think, would be incredibly important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think fire is probably the biggest driver, but there are other drivers as well to that sort of change in forest cover. And it gets hard. You have to start defining what is good forest cover and what is not. And if it's little tiny trees that are starting to grow, well, that's headed in the right direction. But no, I appreciate that.
Glenn?
Hello, Ben. Good to see you here. Thanks for being
See
here.
you.
Yeah, I mean, with respect to the role of the department, particularly, I guess the board, with policy in mind, there's this sort of crossover between helping small forest owners or small woodland owners with success. So there's forestry assistance, and then there's compliance, with regulations. And the philosophy has been that we're all here, especially ODF with the regulatory side, really would like to help people succeed. And of course, that covers a lot of different aspects of forestry, but also then ultimately comply. So, like the reforestation compliance and other kinds of compliance, measures. But I'm not even clear exactly how it's spelled out, in the mission or the goals of the private forest division. But it seems like there would be key performance measures related to, how well is the department functioning with that. And since with the new small forest owner staff that you've hired, and all the changes that the PFA has brought about, it seemed like taking a look at specifically what are the department goals with both, assisting with success, dealing with the issues like post-fire and all that, as well as compliance, and how is that spelled out, and how do we need to maybe tweak the key performance measures related to that? And then for all of us, how do we help the department succeed as a bigger, group here with this committee and with the Partnership for Forestry Education, et cetera. So that comes to mind as something to look at, but I'm not sure of the details of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think there's a sort of a compliance monitoring component of that, but I think what you're saying is more than just that. It's how is ODF's efforts as a whole working to, I don't know, Mike, from your past job, you probably have some thoughts on this of just, how well we can document how many interactions stewardship foresters have with forest land owners, over time. Are we making sure that we're going out and communicating with landowners, providing them the assistance through the small forest landowner office, measuring those contacts over time, hopefully to have greater compliance. And I think if we could find a way to measure that, the greater the assistance, probably the lower the issues with compliance would be over time. So there's a balance there that would be interesting to look at. And thank you.
Yeah, I think if you went internally, like I know, having worked with Mike Thompson for years, and now he's involved with the training. I mean, trying to figure out how to get all the staff up to speed with all the new programs and rules and with the reorganization of how landowner assistance and compliance is done. I imagine it's quite a moving target, and internally people probably have lots of ideas about, hey, how are we doing? How can we do better? And then from the outside, customer satisfaction, if you will. Seems like there's some things to be looked at there. And of course, how can we help once we've identified, those measures and where we might need to improve and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
I have a comment. This is a little more on just what would you want to say to the board? So, or it's not quite a key performance indicator thing, but I would say keeping focus on some major projects where it's really keeping momentum and focus rather than coming up with something new. And I think the private forest accord is probably the best example of that. And I felt when the vision was coming out, I was really disappointed that that wasn't like one of the three main pillars of what's our vision. And so I would say that, and also probably the Western State Forest HCP, just making sure things just move forward with dispatch and get done, and that there's not sort of a dispersal of attention into too many issues, including some rather philosophical ones. Sometimes I feel like it's easier to discuss things in more general terms, but getting the work done requires more specifics. So I think the momentum of focusing on specific things and making sure that those get tied up and finished is one thing. And another sort of, to me, somewhat related point is the focus on fire, which we talked about before, and making sure that communications about that to the public are very specific and like specific actions and on what kinds of lands and what you can do, because I feel the messaging really has not kept up with the way that things have heated up. There's a fuels overloads, and people really need to be better informed about specifically what they can and cannot do. So I would put that on a performance indicator level of something that I haven't seen just as a member of the public, and I think really needs to be part of the messaging.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thinking I'm taking lots of notes here, folks, and thinking about how that would be measured. But I think, yeah, I mean, there's a constant churn of projects in front of everybody, and making sure that the initiatives are completed versus just continuing to add new ones, I think is a good business practice and something that could be measured. And how many sort of halfway completed initiatives does the department have on its plate? We want to make sure there are not too many.
Well, I guess to me, partly like I mean, I'm sure you were doing lots of stuff of which I'm unaware, but like the implementation of the vision, for instance, the sort of development of that vision,
Sure.
And then transferring it over to the department for whatever adjustments need to be made to make sure that that vision is in fact implemented within a period of time. That's just another example of, because there's a lots of stuff interrupting you, like the executive order from the governor or something is another shifting of focus. And it's a huge operational challenge to have all these things coming at you. I appreciate that. But still, keeping the momentum of things that have been invested in over a period of years is a way of being efficient, but I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, making sure things don't just end up on a shelf, that things are actually being, these big projects we work on and big documents and plans become living, breathing initiatives as opposed to a plan that goes on a shelf.
Yeah. Others in the room? Kate?
This is Kate again. And I don't know where this would fit, but I'm constantly thinking about how important it is to not be doing things in a vacuum or not be doing things alone. That there are a lot of good partners that, whether it's the department has or that the board has, like OSWA or OTFS and the Partnership for Forestry Education. And I know that there are some of those connections, but keeping them really front and center, especially when budgets keep shrinking and workloads keep expanding. How are there ways to mobilize, there are people that are willing hands out there, whether it's, those organizations overall, or I know we talk a lot about, master woodland managers, you've got people that should be doing volunteer hours. How can we help? So figuring out, getting enough people at the table sometimes to figure out how do we manage to do all these things? Because I know it's easy when you feel under it, sort of overwhelmed by the number of expectations. It's easy to get more insular rather than continuing to look outward. But outward may be where there are hands that are going, hey, I could help. So, yeah, because there's just so much work to be done.
Yeah, collaboration and not reinventing the wheel is there are a lot of different players, and making sure ODF is well positioned and relying on all of the other players in Oregon, which I think they do a good job of, but isn't always highlighted.
I think, and maybe it's the communication piece of that, but I know we've talked at a couple of some of the times we've come and done our annual report, and there's been that anxiety about trust levels. Well, sometimes how you build trust is you just talk to each other more. And so things that people can misperceive, some of those misperceptions get broken down when you can actually have a conversation, as opposed to read a press release.
Yeah.
Speaking of conversations, that sort of reminds me that I hope that as the board, you feel supported and have good channels of communication, like with the governor or with a natural resources advisor, because for what you guys need to do to feel supported in your work and have, license to do things. So that would say, I hope that exists for you. And I hope that's a priority on the executive level of government.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. And I think this is maybe a good segue to mine. I don't want to cut off this conversation, but I want to segue into a couple more brief topics. But I was going to talk about the governor's executive order related to resilience. And I think that is a good highlight of the relationship between the board department and the governor's office. And I will say that there's a good relationship. I have a great relationship with that office, and I think they have been trying to connect more with the board. In my 5 years in this role, I have to say that the governor's natural resource advisor often is pretty absent from this work. That seems to be they seem to be more present these days, which I appreciate. There's good lines of communication there. The unfortunate thing is it's an office of 2 to 4 people, depending, and they have a lot of agencies that they're overseeing. And I wish their office was a lot bigger. I wish they had a lot more capacity to help guide a lot of this work. So that's a real challenge, but those lines of communications are open, and they'll pick up the phone when a board member calls, and we're willing to have a conversation. So I appreciate that. Can I jump gears? I don't want to cut off conversation. Can I jump gears to talking about the executive order? Or are there more thoughts on KPMs?
It looks good from here. I don't see any hands up or anything. So.
Okay. So I don't want to tell you all something that you already know about, and I don't know if you've had a conversation about the executive order yet, or not.
I mentioned it today, Ben. That was about it.
Okay. Well, I will mention it and maybe get a little more to it. So back in November, the governor signed an executive order that I think I actually have it on my screen here. Executive order number 2526, directing state agencies to take urgent action to promote the resilience of our communities and natural and working lands and waters. So that there's 6 or 8 pages there. I encourage all of you to read it and take a look at it. I'm going to do my best to do a very high level summary of it, but there's a couple key components that I think are really important. And component number 1 is an acknowledgement of the real importance that our natural resource lands play in a changing climate in Oregon. and I think really highlighting the need to build resilience on those lands to make sure they are high functioning and able to provide the ecosystem and climate services that we rely on them for. And so it was an acknowledgement there. It was an ask or a direction to the, I think, 14 natural resource agencies to all be focused on this work. And I think, Wendy, back to your point from earlier, not to create new programs, not to create new initiatives, but to work within existing frameworks and with this as a focus. And I thought I appreciated that. This is not one more new big project and plan to start working on. This was each agency, how do you use the existing infrastructure that you have to support resilience work on the landscape? And there's and it highlights, for forestry, anchoring into our existing 20-year plan strategy that we're working on, highlighting that as an important piece of this when it comes to fire resilience. And so don't make a new plan, use and continue to develop the plan that you've got. It has a sort of, I think maybe the most hard to understand and possibly controversial part of the plan is and we'll try to come up with a language here. I think it's the 10 by 10, 10% lands. It's not 10% in 10 years. Agencies are directed to protect, conserve, connect, or restore 10% of lands and waters in Oregon within 10 years as compared to baseline conditions established for 2025. So this is not about locking up land. It's not about protecting more land from chainsaws. This is about trying to build resilience on more acres and get more acres in the state to a higher functioning condition so that they can provide those benefits that they need. So there are numbers involved, but it's about using the existing infrastructure we have, going back to talking about stewardship foresters, talking with landowners. How can we make sure those conversations are directly contributing to building resilience on our landscape? That's how I read it. That's how I see it. It's a statewide across multiple agencies, but for ODF, a real focus on building resilience in our forests. And back to that other KPM we talked about how much forest cover do we really have? Making sure that we are, getting as much forest cover as we can, making sure those acres that we designate as forest are performing as best as possible and providing those ecosystem and climate services we need. So that's my sort of real quick snapshots of how I understand this executive order. And there's a lot of unknowns. It's one of the topics of conversation at our February board meeting. And there's work ahead for each of the agencies and the department, ODF included, but it's work in figuring out how to continue to steer existing initiatives this direction. So I know we're sort of coming up on time. I wanted to leave room for sort of questions and conversation about that, and I'll do my best to answer what I can on it, but give sort of an update on what that executive order looks like. And the KPM conversation is related to this, wanting to make sure that we are measuring the right things when it comes to forest resilience and the ability of these ecosystems to be strong and robust. And we are going to want to, look at our KPMs through those lenses to make sure we're able to answer those questions going forward and to see change. So with that, happy to answer questions or engage in conversation about that.
Dave?
And one thing I was thinking as you were talking about that, that relates to your KPMs and the resilience and the executive order is maybe in an upcoming meeting, you could give us an update on the reforestation, topic that we've brought forth through OSWA and Tree Farm, because that is obviously fits into this. And so, but if there isn't,
Yeah.
an upfront leadership, right, then that might not be as productive as it could be. So maybe it's something to put on your agenda for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a quick context question. It's Teresa, by the way. Which I ask because I think we've all been in a room where somebody says, oh, we need to clean up this. And the folks who've been doing that freak out that, oh my God, I'm not doing good enough. And the people who aren't doing anything go, oh yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with me. So I guess my question for context is this coming off as more of oh my God, we need a kick in the butt to get things done? Is this, oh, this is a way of ensuring that resources are available to work that agencies are wanting to do? Is this coming out of looking at particular areas going, oh my God, nothing's happening here. We need something to be able to jump on this. Because I am not sure how to hear this.
Thank you. I think the governor's office could do a better job of answering this question than I can, but I think it's a little bit of all of those.
Okay.
I think it hopefully is going to serve as a high level direction when the board of the department is sort of working on initiatives. The governor has sort of stated her position of this is important. You should this if you had any doubt, this is important to work on. And maybe it's a small version of political cover. Maybe it could be read, I think, interpreted in any number of ways. But I think this is meant to be, or I see it as supportive and additive than adversarial. And that do this good work. Not that it hasn't been happening, but scale this up, continue to do more of this good work.
Thanks. And I apologize. I understand it's not your executive order, but
it's okay. I'm trying to be a spokesperson for it and a champion of it.
Yeah. Mike, did you have your hand up or not anymore?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was not sure whether I should sort of chime in from the netherworld or not, but I appreciate that, Ben. I think there are lots of ways. Like I look out my window here and I've got 12 acres of way overstocked 25-year-old Douglas fir. That could be a lot more resilient. And so, when I think of that order, I think of helping our natural resource professionals in the state up to speed on the climate research and able to talk about what resilience means and help landowners take their 12 acres of overstock and know what a treatment is that will help the landowners meet their objectives better rather than letting it do what it does if I don't ever get around to it. And a lot of the natural resource professionals can use that training and that push. There's so many things to focus on. Instead of just focusing on regulation, they can add this to their quiver. And I think it's a good opportunity. And there's so many, genetics, species choice, stocking, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
Any other comments? I appreciate you're just opening it up for us to tell you stuff.
Please, always. I find this incredibly helpful to get all of your perspectives on these issues that we bring up here, because it helps me be a better board member. And I feel like it helps me raise the level of the conversation that we have with the boards to highlight these issues. So I really appreciate all of your feedback, and I have a lot of notes here.
I hope some of it feels appreciative and affirming of your instinct. So I hope.
Oh yeah,
get that
no,
well.
I very much do. I like and appreciate all of your perspectives, and I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was here to help. Like we're here to help decide what those are and help people do those things. We have that education stewardship core value, and we're here to support that.
I think we could wrap that up if that's good for you, Ben. Is there something you want to add, or-
those are my topics, and I really appreciate the time, the space for these conversations, and I really value these conversations. And like as always, feel free to reach out one-on-one with more thoughts if you like. Thank you all. Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, then we will have a discussion that we bumped forward from before of the committee term expirations. In particular, in June, I rotate off because you can only do 2 3-year terms. So I'm going to rotate off. And that's the citizen at large, which is what I am, and the chair position, which is what I hold. I think the easier part of that, it turns out, just be probably transition of chair. I have thought about it a bit. I thought Dave Bugney might be an excellent chair to succeed me. We can have a discussion about that. One reason I thought of Dave is because he consistently sends me little agenda suggestions.
Dave will happily tell us all what to do.
Because I feel like the role of chair is partly to make sure, like obviously Heather's and Mike are like lifting here most of the weight, but it's working together to come up with a good agenda and get speakers and think ahead of time so that if you need 6 months to get someone on your agenda for a presentation or a forum, you do that work. So since Dave seems to be very good at thinking ahead and coming up with good topics, I thought he might be a good chair, and I asked him about it, and he said that he would be willing to do that. On the other hand, nothing's decided. This is something we can have discussion about. What we make is a recommendation to the board, I think procedurally, and because the board of forestry appoints the chair. So I think that would be my introduction to the chair topic. Other comments, thoughts of who wants to do it? Dave, if you had anything to say, that would be great. Have you had second thoughts? You can express that now.
No, I'm just willing to help out wherever I can. So, it's like with anything else. I think it's a worthwhile. I think this is a very worthwhile organization, and it's important. And so, whatever I can do. So,
I would totally support Dave as chair, partly because I'm only laughing in some ways because I'm also on other boards with him. He is good at telling us all what to do and keeping us organized, but that additionally, you have more years before your term expires than any of the rest of us that are currently on the committee. So that would be a better long-term choice because we don't want to do, I wouldn't be unwilling to do it, but it would be kind of silly if I'm only on for another year. I think that actually thinking for the benefit of the Committee for Family Forest Lands, someone who has both some historical memory of it, but also has more time. And then also your connection on the Adaptive Management Committee as well. So you've got your finger in a lot of different pies, as it were.
Can I make one suggestion? We typically have a vice chair as well. I would suggest, I know Becca, I know you guys have just come on, but that would be a great way for you to get to know the board, not the board, the Committee for Family Forest Lands, as an example. And then I know you have the least amount of time on. Be a good way to get in there. Just I don't know.
It's true because Kayla was vice chair, Kayla is not, so we need to appoint. That's a very good point. We need
anyway,
a vice chair.
as a way of getting
Yeah.
what it's all about. So I'm just a suggestion.
We'll ponder that for a second. And Glenn?
Yeah, actually, maybe just a point of order. Does the way the structure of the committee, when someone's appointed chair, doesn't that start a new term? And then would we need to replace David with another landowner representative? I'm not sure how that works, but I thought that the chair was sort of a separate position. And if Dave moved to that, then there'd be a vacancy in the Northwest landowner position. So that might be something to look into.
The
Also the term, then what you're signing up for, David, might be, a new 3-year term. So
I don't think so. Oh,
the charter specifically says that it's just one of the members of the committee, so one of the voting members. So it can be any title. They just typically, they say they prefer it to be the landowner at large, but it can go to anybody else. I didn't see anything in the charter about it restarting terms, so that might be something that we would need to look into. But as far as I know, that isn't part of it. Like it would just
Okay.
transfer to him if the board approved it.
Okay, well, good. That's just, I was just trying to clarify what situation we'd be in or what David would be facing. So, thank you.
Yes, a good question though.
And is vice chair more an internal decision than take it to the board?
The vice chair, I would say, is just if the chair cannot act, the vice chair acts. I think with Keola occasionally conferred with her, and if I wasn't sure if I'd make a meeting, I would just say, are you going to be there? It gave me a little more flexibility.
asking about
I'm procedurally.
Yeah.
It's like, is it just an
Oh, I see what you're
internal decision?
Should we ask Heather since
Oh,
she
yeah.
seems to know our?
It does have to go to the board as well. Vice chair has to be approved by the board as well.
But you just because we don't have to be this vice chair as well. But you might want to find out, you might want to find out what it is your duties are for that. If interested. It's just a suggestion.
Okay,
I'm trying-
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe let's move back a bit to the focus on the chair. Do we want to have more discussion? If we can have more discussion, we could, someone could recommend that we put Dave Bugney forward to the Board of Forestry to approve as chair at their next meeting. But I don't want to feel like I'm rushing anyone, so I'll give a pause here for someone to make a motion or to say they want more discussion.
Yeah, one more point of clarification.
Yeah.
We will have to send it to the Board of Forestry meeting in March to make this effective, because what we can do is we can have them appoint the chair in March and then just have the effective date July 1st for whoever becomes chair.
So should we wait until March, are you saying, or
No.
we need to do it now in order to get it there in time?
Yeah, because I think the Board of Forestry is before.
Oh, okay.
CFFs.
Okay. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm just gonna say, I suggest that we just have a vote of whether or not to put Dave Bugney forward to the Board of Forestry as our chair. And I would say, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? So the committee has agreed that we'll put Dave forward to be proposed to the Board of Forestry as chair of the CFF. And thank you, Dave. Thanks very much. And thank you to everyone on the committee. It's a lot of work. And I appreciate Dave stepping up, but I also appreciate everyone who's joined the committee and is doing our work.
Yeah, I didn't mean to have the vice chair at the same time. Just think about it. We can appoint the vice
It's a
chair
good
later.
point, though. We need a vice chair. So I just thought I would move that forward because people have had a little more time. I mean, I asked Dave about it. So do other people, what should we do about vice chair? Should we wait a little bit? Should we?
Well, I just spring it on him.
Should we ask the targets?
I just made the suggestion of the two of them.
I know, like, why do people who are interested in being vice chair raise their hands or say aye?
That's not a lot of time to think about it.
No, I mean, if you want more time to think about it, you can, obviously.
Or just miss a meeting. Yeah, and then get appointed.
Okay, as long as like people don't want to say yes now.
I need a little time to think about it and understand.
Okay, we will not discuss it at this meeting and we'll just, it's more important to have a chair, obviously, so people can think about this then. Okay, so that's check on the chair. We're waiting on the vice chair. And the next issue is the citizen at large. As I mentioned, I'm the citizen at large and I had spoken to Jeff Gersh, who came and talked to this committee. And I kind of goofed this up, I'm afraid, because he'd be an excellent person. He's willing to do it. But when I looked at the charter again last night to double check, I noticed on the second page a point that says that the person who's citizen at large is not supposed to own forest land. I think because I don't own forest land, I had thought you either could or could not in that position, but it says that it's a person who does not own forest land. And I just hadn't noticed that. The citizen at large shall be a private citizen who does not own forest land. So I have an apology to send out to Jeff Gersh to thank him for talking to me and coming to present to the committee. But unfortunately, I thought that I was on top of this one, and it turns out I personally am not. I can do some, talking to people about, because it requires sort of a person who's interested enough in these issues and informed enough to be a good contributor to the committee, but who doesn't own forest land. And I have people obviously in the land trust community I know I can talk to, but perhaps others of you have ideas about this succession.
A couple of thoughts. One is just to suggest to Jeff that, because whenever my term ends, I don't know when that is, he could take, be appointed to my position when I'm done in the future. So, because I think that would be a worthy thing just to suggest to him X years down the road. But then the second thing is Mike Cafferata, isn't there an affiliate or some sort of designation for OSWA folks that don't own forest land but can be members? If that's the case, maybe there's somebody in that pool you could look through and see if, we could go through the vetting process, but that might be obviously they're interested in forest land, they just don't own forest land, so it might be a place to start.
That's a good idea. Since you mentioned that, Dave, when I have to call Jeff up and apologize for taking up his time and being, not reading the charter well enough first, but I might mention that to him because I know he's interested in the committee. Jeff Gersh is working on a project to help small forest landowners have a better vehicle for succession. And so he's set up a nonprofit to do that. I think he would be good on the committee, but I guess he can't do it right now as citizen at large.
Well, then that brings up kind of the related thing that I had mentioned is like checking out, and actually, Heather, you're probably more of an expert on what the remaining term the new next set of term expirations, because I know that Gary Maurizio and I came on at the same time, which is going to be 3 people that need to be replaced at the same time. So earlier than Dave, it could be something like Jeff could, might be someone for our landowner at large. But if we are thinking ahead, and I thought it was like we each all have 1 more year.
You guys all expire next year,
Okay.
June of next year.
So
June of 27.
June of 27. So that could be a sooner than, we don't want Dave.
Yep.
Dave doesn't get to step down now, or, because he's now chair. So
He's stuck.
he's stuck. But that could give us like 1 person, well, we know, I've been trying to, I'd love for T to be, she could probably potentially step in for Gary's position. And if we only had someone from Eastern Oregon, and here's another question, which is, you get 6 years. If you've ever served on the committee, are you then disqualified from serving on the committee ever again? Do you know?
What's the charter say?
Yeah, and yes, that's,
I don't know if they've ever had somebody ask that.
they get 6 years and at the door running. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd ask Keola.
Because I was thinking of Roji.
I did ask her.
Yeah,
Because Eastern Oregon, I think, might be our hardest, our toughest lift to find someone who's willing and able.
yeah, she would just have to do it over Zoom, just because for 2 reasons: 1, distance, and 2, she's, I think if I remember the diagnosis right, she's suffering from progressive macular degeneration, which or something on that order. So it limits her traveling, and so, but she would be a superb addition but she's already served on this committee. But yeah, like you say,
Yeah.
So it says voting members are appointed to 3-year terms with a maximum of 2 consecutive 3-year terms. So I would assume that means it applies to the person, not the position.
Except it says maximum consecutive, so that would lead to the other conclusion, that it could be.
That's what you always do.
Yeah. You could in fact have someone come back, I think, according to that, yeah.
We'll check on it.
Yeah, but that's
We'll
worth
check
checking.
on it.
We have a year, but that's worth checking on.
Yeah.
Just
Might have to update the term.
because
Yeah.
one of the
Well,
things
that's what I'm
that's
worried
nice is having that sense of historical memory on that, so
If you ever want
that combination of
story
new
about
blood and people
bylaws.
who've kind of been listening for a while. So
Yeah. I think it just comes down to fairness. So if you do have somebody that does want to truly be on the board,
Oh, yeah.
use someone new to allow them on and not kind of have the same folks on all the time.
Right.
I think that was the intent of that. So.
It does seem that most of these rules are set up because there's this, huge raft of people who really want on.
Yeah.
Rather than.
And just to also talk about Dave's expiration, he also expires in June, so we would need to take a vote to renew his current position.
But then he'd have another 3 years.
But then he'd have
Yes,
another
yeah.
3 years.
I think we'll probably will vote for him to have another 3 years.
I mean, let's hope so.
Since we just voted
Yeah.
as chair.
So another thought regarding Eastern Oregon is, and Mike could probably, Cafarata could maybe help us with this, is they have their state chapter contacting them to see if there's somebody that's really a mover and a shaker over there that would be willing to do this. What is that? Northeast Oregon Small Woodlands Association, right? That's their name. And so there's got to be somebody there that could help us out. I think.
It's also Morrow County chapter. So
Yeah,
I think-
thanks for that note, Becca.
I say to Becca's point about will allow resources, I just also say that while Alyssa may not be able to serve in the capacity, I mean, to be certainly asked, but she's been a conduit in the past for this committee to find Eastern Oregon landowners. And the other name that's come up for Eastern Oregon, as you mentioned, Northeast Oswego, is Debbie Lawrence.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one way we could go from here is, I've taken a couple notes, but if you have ideas, perhaps you could email them to Mike and Heather, and then I can help with, we can try and come up with a successor member. And again, sorry to have dropped the ball a bit on that, and thank you for all your help. So we're almost at the end of that topic, I think, because we've decided on the vice chair, we're waiting for the citizen at large. We're going to brainstorm and send us some comments to Mike and Heather. And then we're going to think about longer term succession, but we're not in a rush about that. So I think that ties up our conversation with 4 minutes to go in our meeting, unless I see any hands up.
So is there any other round table?
We have roundtable next, so if someone has a very short roundtable point, we would love to hear it. Is there any sort of community at large information people would like to share in the remaining few minutes? School, probably.
Yeah, I think Jake.
I have one quick thing. As you know, I'm going off the committee and I'm very involved with the land trust, and I thought it could be interesting maybe at the next meeting if I gave a short presentations about land trusts and the way we typically partner with people and how they like to engage with the small forest landowner community. They have a lot of overlap in terms of running projects, of funding possibilities, working with the logistics of grants over time. Would that be okay with people if I, as chair, took a little time at the next meeting to talk about that?
And especially if you talked about, I'd love to have a segment of that be focused on the smaller,
Yeah,
the
sure.
under 100 acres or the under 50
Yeah.
acre folks that
Yeah.
also are often looking for those things.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
That would be.
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
that-
Glenn wants to talk about tree school.
Glenn,
Well, I don't know if I have to say too much, but if you don't already know, Tree School Clackamas is coming up March 21st. The catalog is done and it's online, and it will be going in the mail probably the end of the week. If you don't happen to be on the mailing list, you can get a hard copy if you just want to contact me. Your extension office will have some, but also, it's online. So yeah, thanks for everybody. I think most of you are involved in it one way or the other. So it's looking good. And I guess an announcement maybe you already know is that our preschool coordinator, Sarah Cameron, has taken the new job. She's now the coordinator for the Master Woodland Manager Program and the Women Owning Woodlands Network, which is excellent. But that also means we're going to be looking for a new preschool coordinator and program assistant here in Clackamas County. And that position is actually now going to be merged with a small farms position. So we're actually going to have a little decrease in capacity there. But those two really work well together. They're similar events, so there's some efficiency as well. So yeah, that's our big news. And looking forward to seeing a lot of you there. And thanks for all your help.
Thanks.
And
And
thanks to
Julie,
the department. Yeah, we'll be in touch, but you guys usually have at least 3 tables in the exhibit hall, as well as a lot of the instructors that the Department of Forestry provides. So it's looking good. Thanks.
sorry to interrupt you, Glenn. I was calling on Julie.
No problem. Julie Woodward. So I just want to update on the Partnership for Forestry Education that we are updating the resource guide that goes and is available for landowners, and the Committee for Family Forest Land is included in that. We also are, as a group, putting on a train the trainers for folks that work with forest landowners, primarily small landowners, around the riparian rules. One's going to be in East Oregon and one's in Western Oregon, and they're both online, so people can gather. It's just a 3-hour training in the morning with the person, Siobhan, who wrote our riparian chapter in the illustrated manual, along with ODF. So appreciate the staff that's had input on that, and just trying to, again, continue providing services and helping. Appreciate this group helping be supportive of all us working together for that type of outreach efforts. We have another meeting scheduled in the spring, and anyone from the Committee for Family Forest Lands is always welcome to join the Partnership for Forestry Education meetings. We have 2 a year.
Thanks. And Becca.
Thanks, Wendy. I just wanted to say hi to speak in the meeting, just so folks know I'm here. I have the flu, unfortunately, so I've been a little bit incapacitated, but I'm excited to be part of this group. Thanks for welcoming me to your body. And I'm hoping to reach out to each of you one-on-one just to get to know you and say hello, if that's all right. So expect to hear from me. I start a maternity leave in March, but I'm hoping to stay engaged with the committee uninterrupted despite that. But my capacity will be a little lower after March, so I'll probably reach out to you before then. And just wanted to say hello.
Thanks, Becca.
Julie, when is that Partnership for Forestry Education meeting in spring? April 21st, maybe, or?
That sounds right. I can
Okay.
send that out.
Well, I might call the meeting to a close. It's 2:00. Thanks, everyone, for all your contributions, for being on the committee, and I hereby adjourn the meeting. Have a nice afternoon.
Bye,
Great,
everyone.
great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
If it's too big for it.
We have a longer. Actually, I think there was a.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been here or not. I just haven't seen what's out there. It's an older version. So this is from like the folks from ODF and Giants. They both retired.
Good to see everyone. Sorry, I got another meeting.
Got some-
Okay.
That's a
Thanks,
fun
Dave.
day.
Thanks. Appreciate the nomination. See you. Sorry, I got
Thanks.
Absolutely. I think
She thinks he's gonna. Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, see ya.
It's got some good information in it.
Get you guys
Has a conglomerate
spots. Yeah.
of people.
Yeah, that way.
Just, I don't know, I just haven't seen it on it. It's been.
I always love looking at weed pictures. Because I like identifying plants. This is so, you know, my boyfriend lives in Ashland, so I've been going down there for like 15 years. And then ground star thistle, the war star thistle, and just 15 years, it's just frankly horrifying.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's the right word.
yeah.
Scourge, yeah. Bad weeds and not weeds, of course.
It's funny they don't have Scotch broom here.
Well, put in with the gorse. I think this is probably before the Scotch broom was bad. Gorse was the big one.